Welcome to a More Beautiful World podcast with Susyn Renee, a place for those of us with the desire to expand our consciousness, tap into higher vibrations of love, and to connect into a community where together we can make the world a more beautiful place. I'm so eager to share with you what I've learned on my journey in discovering how we're all connected and how what we do for one, we do for us all. Here, I'll be sharing my own experiences, knowledge, and expertise for how you can heal, transform, and ascend your being so that together we can create the more beautiful world we all know is possible. Well, hello again, my dear tribe. So great to have you back for another episode. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about expanding your self awareness. One of my favorite topics. Really excited to bring this to you today. So, in this episode, we are going to talk about, first of all, what is self awareness? What are we exactly talking about when we say expand your self awareness? I'm also going to talk to you about why it's important and why we need to do that. What is the purpose of expanding our self awareness? And why do we need that to make the world a more beautiful place? I also want to share with you my personal story and going through addictions and how I use expanding my self awareness to release those addictions and really get to the root cause of what the addictions were all about. And then I want to talk to you guys about some ways that you can begin to expand your self awareness in your own life to really help yourself stay well and get better, because that's what it's all about. That way we can make the world so much more beautiful. So I'll share with you again some of these practices that I've began to incorporate in my life, that I've helped clients incorporate. And from there, we're just going to kind of wrap it up and just talk a little bit about what we can do to take it out into the world. So let's dig in. Now, as a spiritual wellness mentor, I have definitely found that nutrition and lifestyle and mindset practices, they are all super important. I will never say they are not important. However, I have found that when you pair that with more spiritual practices, that's when the powerful shifts begin to happen. It is a holistic paradigm that I work within. And the reason I am so called to it as a holistic medicine practitioner is that it freaking works. So, the spiritual aspect I really want to talk to you guys about today really is expanding your self awareness. So, maybe you're asking, what is self awareness? So, the definition: self awareness is the ability to recognize and understand your moods, emotions, and drives, as well as their effect on others. So, pretty amazing thing to want to expand, right? What are your moods? What are your emotions? What are your drives? And how is all of that affecting those around you? I'm also going to encourage us to expand on the definition a little bit to include tapping into your intuition. So, not only recognizing your moods, emotions, but recognizing your intuitive guidance, being able to tap in and access the wisdom from your higher self. So when we are talking about expanding self-awareness, again, I want you to think about, again, understanding, recognizing your moods, emotions, drives, and how they're affecting others, but also what's coming in intuitively, what is coming in from a divine guidance perspective, and are you accessing that wisdom? Are you trusting your gut? Okay. So Socrates once said, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." So, how well, ask yourself, how well do you think you know you? And in that knowing, if you think you know yourself very well, maybe you are a more wise person. Maybe you don't know you as well as you'd like to. So, that's a question I just want you to marinate on a little bit, because I do agree with Socrates that knowing ourselves really does create wisdom. And, Socrates also said, know thyself. And that's always stuck with me because I feel like on this journey in life, on this sacred journey, and as we're going through this time of ascension and we're all on our own spiritual and ascension journeys, I think knowing ourselves is a key component to that, which is why I want to talk to you today about expanding our self awareness. And I think this is a very key part in us to make it a more beautiful world as well. Because again, what we do for ourselves, we do for us all. So as we expand, right, our self-awareness, we get to really understand as well how we are affecting others, right? How are our actions, our moods, our emotions impacting and affecting, those around us? We need to be able to understand, I think, what we're doing and how it's affecting others and how it does have a greater impact, right? The things that we're doing ripple out and affect, ultimately our communities and our world at large. So with that, I, invite you to kind of listen in today with an open mind and open heart and really connect into, do you right now, are you able to access your own inner truth? Can you access your intuition for guidance? Because this is your place of true power. And I think this does come from having an increased level of self-awareness and really knowing yourself. So the more powerful and authentic that you are, the greater it does make us all. And again, knowing how you're showing up and affecting others, knowing that information and even how you're influencing others, that can be really helpful information to inspire change within ourselves, right? And usually change for the better once we know how we're affecting people. So let's get curious as we talk about this. And again, hopefully, I'm going to end sharing some practices with you guys to expand your self-awareness. But the one thing that I've read and kind of made me understand how important it is to expand our self-awareness is this. You're going to hear me quite often bring in quotes from folks, one of which is going to be Dr. Joe Dispenza. I absolutely love his work as a neuroscientist and all he does to make our world a more beautiful place. But one of the things I read in his book, Becoming Supernatural, is that 95% of who you are by the time you're 35 years old is all memorized behavior and emotions that have created your identity subconsciously. And I remember when I read that, but I was a bit devastated. I'm not going to lie, because honestly, at the time of this recording right now, I am 35 years old. And when I thought about, oh my gosh, up to this point in my life, I am already like 95% of who I'm going to be, like that's already been created for me. I didn't want to accept that. I was like, no, I don't want to be these subconscious programs running around and only consciously have control of 5% of my life. That did not feel good for me. So think about that for yourself. Not sure what age you are as you are listening to this podcast or maybe watching it on YouTube. You can tell me in the comments if you want. I'd love to engage with you there. But, really think about that. What are your routines and your patterns? Even think about your knee-jerk reactions and your knee-jerk emotional reactions to things that happen in your life. And think about how really that's, creating these opportunities or instances, maybe is a better word for it, for you to ignore emotions that come up or to numb out feelings and experiences because you're just kind of running on these programs. So you aren't fully, experiencing life as it's happening for you, right? Because you're running on these programs. I remember again when I had first read that in Dr. Dispenza's book, he talked about like the patterns that we have in our behaviors and routines, and he was talking about like waking up in the morning and going to bed. And I was thinking about my bedtime routine, about how I wash my face and brush my teeth and put on my facial oils and then I do my foam roller and then I climb into bed and I read a book and I was like, holy shit, I do that really unconsciously. And so one of the first like acts of defiance in breaking the patterns, when I learned that, was I decided to like do a front like flip, kind of like this front like tuck and roll into bed and sleep on the other side of the bed. I was like, no one is gonna, tell me I'm in a routine and that I'm a pattern. So for about, I don't know, a couple weeks, I just got into bed in different ways every single night, and would sleep in different positions on different sides of the bed. Just because I was like, no, I'm not accepting, right, that I'm going to be 95% subconscious routines. But really, I share that with you because I thought it was kind of funny. But also, think about your patterns and routines. And I mean, when's the last time you slept on the other side of the bed or did something different, just got into bed a different way? Or maybe if you wash your face and brush your teeth every night, maybe reversing those in order, or brushing your teeth with your different hand, right? All these things, cool things to think about, in my opinion. But in a grander scale, that was kind of a small example of expanding your awareness and really becoming aware of your patterns. Because as we start to place awareness on what these patterns are, right, and just getting curious about our patterns, our routines, and how we're showing up. Once you can start to get curious, I think we can really start to make progress in our own lives. So we're going to talk a little bit more about getting curious and questioning and becoming present. But I want to start with a story here about. I actually want to share with you a bit of my story of addiction, because I think the way I was able to expand my self-awareness and really understand those drives, those emotions, those moods that were happening as I was using certain substances and, certain practices in my lifestyle. I was using them in a way that was a pattern, right? It was a neurochemical addiction, right? It was this subconscious addiction to certain emotions that I was choosing to numb out and not feel. So I think that in the addiction space, which I'm not an addiction expert by any means, from like I haven't studied addiction. I'm not a psychologist or anything. However, in my own personal journey, I know a lot about addiction. So, in expanding my self awareness, it really helped me let go of my addictions. And I want to share with you that story. So these last really, I've been, at the time of this recording, I've been divorced for 4.5 years. And that was kind of a big kickoff for me in my spiritual ascension, in my spiritual journey. But really, these last like 2 years have been a lot of deep work for me. And I've been doing a lot of reflecting, a lot of spiritual deep dives. And in doing a lot more of that, I've also journeyed in some plant medicines, which more to come on that in future episodes for you all. Those are going to be probably multiple part episodes, but I've really allowed myself on this journey in these last 2 years to feel into the deeper parts of myself. Again, remember, expanding our self-awareness. Self-awareness is all about recognizing and understanding our moods, emotions, and our drives. So some of that comes from our darkness. And I finally have had the courage to travel into the darkness, with the goal of seeking the light, and being able to find the light in the darkness and understand that the darkness is beautiful too. And there's a lot of beautiful things that come from it. But it took me a while to get the courage to look at what I originally felt were the quote unquote, ugly parts of myself that I hadn't wanted to look at my whole life. So, in the name of expanding self awareness and really healing as well, I started to look at my addiction patterns. And let me tell you guys, there were a lot of addictions. I used to just think it was tobacco, and alcohol were my addictions because, I had this belief that cannabis wasn't addictive, gambling wasn't addictive, sex wasn't addictive, right? But when I started to really reflect back and look, I recognized all of those were my addictions. I was addicted to sex, addicted to cannabis, addicted to tobacco, to alcohol, to gambling. And why? Why were these addictions? The way I see and have felt into my own addictions and in some of the stuff that I have studied around addictions is that if you are using these things, it can even be binge watching Netflix, right? If you are using them to actively numb out feeling your emotions, right? Feeling a certain mood, if you are using them as a numbing mechanism, then I see it as an addiction. Um, so with that, how did I kind of come to these conclusions for myself? Is that I recognized my intention of using every single time with all of them is I was using them to avoid discomfort and to numb out emotions that I didn't want to feel. And that came through becoming self aware. So it kind of started for me. I didn't say to myself, I'm going to quit drinking right now because I know alcohol is bad and I know that it toxifies my liver and I'm just never going to do it again. Okay, I don't live in like a black and white world. You guys will start to really pick up on that as we go through episodes together. But instead, I approached it with this curiosity and I asked myself, why do I feel like drinking right now? Like, what is driving me to want to do this? What emotions am I feeling right now that are making me, propelling me to want a cocktail? Right. And, honestly, when I went into it with that intention, it wasn't like, okay, now that we're asking these questions, we're not going to use. It was, okay, we're just asking these questions to expand our awareness. And honestly, sometimes I'd feel some things. Sometimes emotions would come up. And sometimes I just wasn't resilient enough yet to allow those feelings to come up. And that was okay because I started to ask the questions and ultimately it did lead me to recognize that I was using because I felt lonely and I also felt abandoned. So anytime there was an instance in my life where I had felt abandonment come up, I had felt abandoned by someone, I would lean into using again, be it the sex, the cannabis, the tobacco, the alcohol, the gambling, any of it. It was a response. I would lean into those addictions as a response to feeling abandoned. And at the root of that was loneliness, right? I was feeling lonely. So in order to not feel lonely, I would numb out by getting high or getting drunk or having a bunch of lights and sounds flash in my face, at the casino as I was playing on slot machines. Or I'd be, swiping on some dating app and looking for a hookup. All of these things were my way to not feel lonely and to numb out feelings of loneliness and abandonment. So we will get into more of like how we heal those emotions in future episodes too. But once I began to recognize the feelings and actually feel them, that alone started to free up space for me. And so again, I think that is the power of expanding our awareness is that we get to recognize and again, understand, right, our moods, emotions, and our drives. And once you can, the only way out of those emotional spins and those emotional states is to go through them. So in the case of addiction, right, we're numbing out, we're not allowing ourselves to feel. we are kind of dulling, right, our senses. And that means the loneliness, the abandonment, any other toxic emotions like anger, frustration we may be feeling, those are just staying stuck and they get stuck in our organs and organ systems and create physical ailments and dis-ease in the body. But again, the only way out of that is through it. And once we have the self awareness on those emotions, then we can implement practices to work through it. Okay. That is one of the things I've been doing in my personal life. It's one of the things I help clients with. And, in this story, again, with my addictions, once I found that root cause, which is also what holistic medicine is all about, finding the root cause. And once I realized it was the abandonment issues that I had been carrying, since I was a child. And I could start talking about the loneliness with people and I could start to brainstorm, ways and solutions to help solve these problems more, more creatively and in healthier ways that really serve my highest good and my purpose on this earth. And so I share all of this because, again, this was a big part of my journey and a big part of what expanding my self-awareness helped me to overcome. So again, it wasn't just around addiction. It was really around my entire being that expanding my self-awareness has helped. But that was one of the more profound things in my life, was to see how I was relating to these addictive habits and allow myself to get to the root cause so we could actually heal it. And again, I want to serve my highest good and I want to be here for you guys and show up and, really go through and be my purpose and be my mission every day. So with that, let's talk about some practices that help you expand your self-awareness. And again, this is not just around addiction, you guys. This is around anything. It can be anything in your life that you want to create more awareness on. And hey, maybe in just getting curious and creating some more self-awareness, you'll find you need to become aware in different areas, or you're more aware in some areas than others. So, a couple of practices I want to share with you. Again, we've talked about this one quite a few times, but just start getting curious. Okay. Start questioning, start becoming present in the moment. Take a moment to center yourself and say, okay, right now, how am I feeling? What is my mood right now? What maybe caused me to get here? If you want to even take it another layer deeper, what is driving me right now to want to do this, right? Just get curious, start questioning, become present. That alone can start to unlock so many layers of healing for you. Next, I invite everyone to start a journaling practice. But when it comes to expanding self-awareness, just journaling out your emotions can be really helpful. Doing what I call free journaling, where you're just kind of not really thinking about it, just writing how you're feeling right now. You can start to see some patterns emerge and start to become, again, more aware of those patterns. Another practice I invite you to consider is some daily self-reflection. I always found this was best done in the evenings for myself, as part of that, nighttime routine that I was joking about earlier. I would, before I would read at night, I would just take a couple of minutes and sit in reflection. And how did the day go for me? What did I do well today? What could I have done better? But just really kind of take a moment to look through the day and look through how I was showing up and just start to see and again become aware of how I was going throughout my day. Another great practice is some mindfulness practices. We're going to also have a whole episode on mindfulness, but simply coming into the now. And you can do that by kind of doing a check-in with your five senses. What are you tasting right now? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you smelling? What are you touching? Bringing your presence back into the now can be a great way to build self-awareness and to expand it. A meditation practice. Again, we're going to have, I think, quite a few episodes on meditation practices in different ways because there's so many different ways to meditate. But just for the simplicity of this, just getting still, breathing, and listening. Okay. That alone, just taking a couple minutes to take a couple deep breaths, get still, and just listen can help you expand your self awareness. Also, for those of you active folks out there who love your movement, I'm a huge fan of movement myself, which we'll probably be doing some episodes on that as well. But when we move, it does, emotions, right, are literally energy in motion. So as we move, emotions can come up. And I encourage you, as a practice, you can start tuning into your emotions. What is coming up as you're going for a run or a hike or a walk or when you're doing yoga? Again, tuning in, right, to those emotions that are coming up can be another great way to expand your self awareness. Now, one key piece I want to leave you with all of these practices, this goes across all of the practices, is we need to let go of self judgment while we are practicing these. So it is not helpful to, have a daily self reflection and be an asshole to yourself. Okay. So when you're going through your self reflection and, maybe it was a difficult day for you and you weren't feeling well. And so, you kind of laid in bed half the day. If that was your day, like, fuck it, dude, that was your day. It's okay. I always use the mantra, I am exactly where I need to be right now. So if you, again, have that day where you weren't feeling well, you didn't get your work done, you're just laying around in bed, and then you start to say a bunch of very critical, harmful, mean things to yourself about it, that is not going to help you in expanding your self-awareness. You're probably just actually exacerbating and strengthening one of those toxic patterns that you maybe have created in your lifetime. So when you are starting to get curious and question and do some self-reflection and journaling, do it without judgment and tell yourself, I am exactly where I need to be right now. Even if it was a shitty day, even if it felt really awful, even if it was hard, okay, just tell yourself you are loved, you are appreciated, you are exactly where you need to be right now. That is an absolute key piece. So please make sure that as you're going through these practices, you let go of self-judgment, bring in some self-compassion, bring in some self-love, because just showing up and doing this work, it's amazing. It takes so much courage for you to show up and do this work. And what I'm going to ask that you guys do is kind of a call to action here is to pick one of these practices and try it on for a few weeks. And again, I know it can be a little scary and it does take some courage, right? To step in and say, you know what, I am going to do this. But if you can start to recognize opportunities to disrupt your patterns and really change your patterns and your programs, we'll talk about a lot of different ways to do that in future episodes as well. That is where we can start to improve our inner worlds. And once we can change, our energy, we really can change our life. And so this is a very key part in changing our energy. And in that, again, this is how we make it a more beautiful world. We start the change within. Finding peace within ourselves will create more peace in the outer world. So I'm going to recap really quickly here. Remember, expanding our self-awareness. It's about your ability to recognize and understand your moods, your emotions, and your drives, as well as their effect on others. So I'm going to encourage you all to think about expanding your self-awareness. And remember, I see this as well as tapping into your intuition and listening to your inner guidance, and expanding your self-awareness to include the awareness of your higher self. And in that, again, I do believe this is a key component of making our world a more beautiful place. So Eckhart Tolle, I have a quote from him that I kind of want to leave you guys with as a little parting gift and a thought. Eckhart Tolle says, your perception of the world is a reflection of your state of consciousness. So I want you to tune in as you start to expand your self awareness and start to make the connection for how you have been perceiving the world. I think that our state of consciousness really does reflect into how we perceive the world. So as you are getting, more self aware and becoming more self aware, I think you can even start to recognize how you've been perceiving the world. And once we have that awareness, that's when we can really start to change it. So, thanks for hanging in there with me today, you guys. I know that was a lot. But do remember, tribe, it all begins with you. And what we do for ourselves, we do for us all. So I appreciate you. I am so grateful you are here. And I honor and respect that you have the courage to show up and to make your world a better place, your inner world and your outer world. So until next time, much love to you, dear tribe. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Hey, tribe. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this podcast, make sure to like the video below and then click subscribe so you never miss an episode. And remember, I've got lots of free resources available to you to support your healing, transformation, and ascension so you can help in making this a more beautiful world for us all. Make sure you check them out in the description below. Thanks again for tuning in, tribe. And until next time, much love to you all.